Hey Covalence friends, and welcome to another edition of Scheduly Noted. In this edition, we are going to actually be sending out emails with our code, so that's been a long time coming with this, and here we are in video 4, actually about to see that get accomplished. So if you haven't seen the previous videos in this series, I do have the link in the description, and you should go ahead and watch those before watching this. And if you haven't done so, make sure you also subscribe so that way you can be notified when the future editions of the series come out. Let's go ahead and jump right to it. So I've gone ahead and added my Mailgun credentials to my environment variables already, and I've set up my config objects for that. So that's all that has changed behind the scenes between the previous video and this. But what I have are you don't need to do this. I'm doing a sending address. That's just my email address. It kind of depends on what you want your emailing functionality to be. I actually really don't need that for this app. But what you do need are your Mailgun domain and your API key. And that's going to be like the email server your emails relay through, and then your API key authenticating you to Mailgun. So when you're starting out, you'll have a sandboxed domain for that, but you can get everything updated and you can have your own server, with your own text record that lets you relay mail through your own official domain. So it feels like super legit once you have that. But regardless of which way you're doing, if you're just doing test mode for now, you'll need your domain and key. And I also have this domain-based environment variable just because I am running my server and client side on distinct ports for testing and development. So we are going to, abstract that out. So this right now is just localhost colon 8000, but in production I would have this as like whatever my website is. So that's what we have set up, and let's go ahead and jump into creating a new folder here. We're going to be setting up like a little mail service. I guess that's what I'll go with. I want that to be a little more distinct than utils. I'm not going to bike shed too much about terminology, but I feel like an emailing action is a little more of a service than a simple like utility. So in here, we'll create a new file, mailer.ts. We'll go with that, or maily. And we need a couple of node modules to install. We need the Mailgun library, and they have the Mailgun.js node module. There are a handful of different node modules that all act as wrappers around Mailgun. Some of them are older legacy ones. Mailgun.js is their officially supported one as of like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. So we will install that. And the form-data library, can't remember if that's the one we need or not, if it's just form data. We'll go with that. And I don't remember if either of them include types or not, so that's why I'm independently running this command from the other installation, just in case. Yeah. So Mailgun does have their own types installed, and let's see about form data. Cool. All right. We've got our libraries installed, and now I can go ahead and import Mailgun from Mailgun, import form data from form data. Oops. And I'm going to import my config file as well. So let me make sure I just created these. I never exported my config variables out. So let me go ahead and get those added as well. Cool. All right. Now here in Mailer, we'll go ahead and we will create a new client. We'll instantiate a Mailgun mail client. So const Mailgun, I'll call it Mailgun with a lowercase since it auto-imported uppercase, equals new Mailgun. Now, Mailgun requires the form data library because that's how it parses its contents, so we'll set that up. And then the Mailgun client initialization, it requires your API key, and you have to provide it the username of API. So, that's because we're authenticating with an API key. So I assume they have other authentication mechanisms. I've never used any outside the API key, but for us, username API, and then key is config. If I could type .mailgun.key. Now, because this is coming from process.env, it might be defined, it might not. I could have, in production forgotten to add that to my environment variables, or I might have just screwed up typing out the word like key or something. So we do have to make sure that it does exist. And unfortunately, I wish TypeScript could be a little more assertive, or not assertive per se, but more understanding of this. But what I'm going to do is just throw an unhandled error here in the event that this isn't found, because I actually do want to assert that my mailgun key does exist, and this is a pretty critical integral part of my application. So I really do want to make sure that if for some reason this is not present, that's a major bit of my app. My app should not be running. So we can say if not. Actually, let me do this. Const key is equal to config.mailgun.key. And it's because we'll be using this key variable potentially later downstream, although don't quote me on that. Maybe not. So if not key, throw new error. Missing mailgun API key. Oh, and here I need to just give it the key variable, because that's what we just asserted with this. So cool. Now that we've got that, I'll create a mailer function here, and what I'm going to have this accept as an argument is like a to from subject and like body for the email itself. So we're going to be reusing this mailer function for a whole lot, so I really do need to make it very kind of flexible and configurable. So I'm going to create an interface in here for like mail props. I'll have, let's see, to string, from, also string, subject, also string, and body, also string. So our incoming function arguments, we'll go ahead and destructure those out as soon as I type this as mail props. So we get to, from, subject, and body. Cool. So now inside of this function, we're going to return a call. And we've got our mailgun client here saved at this mailgun variable. And we're going to return a call to it. This is where we actually get to use it. mailgun.messages.create. I always forget the order of that. We have our other environment variable, our domain that this is going through. So that'll be config.mailgun.domain. And then our data is going to be, well, they have their own distinct type for that, and our properties do overlap mostly, but I'm going to be sending, an object with to, from, subject, body in other files just because those naming conventions for those variables make sense, because that's what we typically, in non-programming terms, refer to them as. They will accept them in some slightly different ones. I think it is like to, from, subject. Body, I don't think they have a distinct body property, and if it is, I think it's something dealing with like raw file input. So for text, you actually have HTML, but I don't want to use HTML per se. I want to use body, so I just made my own interface for that. But here, to, from, subject, and then HTML is their property that we give our body property as. And here, yeah, so it's also going to want me to get that. So you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to do a destructure of key and domain from our mailgun config. And then in here, we are going to say if not domain, and we'll switch this up to domain. Let's see, and the reason why I'm doing these as separate individual checks for thrown errors is because TypeScript, if I were to do both in a singular if statement, it wouldn't know explicitly which one threw the error. So if I checked for not domain or not key here, regardless of why the error is getting thrown, it's just kind of a funny little nuance. Like I'll show you what I mean. Watch TypeScript not like do this here. So here TypeScript, knows that key is a string. Why? Because its value is going to be a string or undefined, and here we check for its truthiness, and if it is untruthy, if it's falsy, it's because it was undefined, and therefore that error gets thrown and this code never gets reached. However, if I were to do two assertions, well, I could have sworn I hit something similar a while back, but it's actually being okay about this, so never mind. Okay, well, hey, good to know. The error that I feel like I was encountering with having these as distinct things is like TypeScript was acting as if they were, distinct, entities that should be checked for, but the error was getting thrown. So like we would have had unreachable code regardless of which was getting hit. So we would need to have like key at least certainly defined, but also domain defined in order to be able to proceed. But yeah, so I guess just ignore everything I've said the last minute and a half or so, because it's not getting angry about key here, thinking that it could have potentially been domain throwing the error. Let me just try flipping that just to... Yeah, no, cool, okay. So I'll change this message up to missing a mailgun in vars, and we will keep this nice and clean. Cool. So this mailer function just returns a call to the mailgun messages create function. So this returns a promise. So we can, keep everything nice and asynchronous when we're utilizing this mailer function. Now, what I want to do is there's a few different types of emails we need to send. So if we look at like our auth middlewares during registration, we have an email verification link that we need to send. And if somebody attempts to log in without verifying, we need to resend virtually that same exact email. And then, let's see. Yeah, for this app, that's actually just that one verification link email that we need to send. So what we're going to do here is say const send email, send verification email. And this is just going to daisy chain a call to that mailer function, but here we can take in some of the attributes ourselves. We really just need that to property passed to us, that user's email, because otherwise we're saying who it's from, we're saying what the subject is, and we're saying what's going in the body. So in here, we are going to, let's see, mail props pass in 2. So we're just sending in one string argument, but I might maybe make this a little more variable in the future. So for now, I'm still giving it the mail props object, for future flexibility, but we're only going to be passing in the 2 prop for now. So, and we'll return a call to mailer, daisy chaining in 2. Our from will be like authentication, security, verification, auth at this is tough. Like I want to verification security. I'll just go with auth. I'll try to, like I said, I'll try to not bike shed too much here, but we'll go with auth here, and this will be, and you could interpolate like your domain here, if you wanted to use that like domain base environment variable. I'm just gonna make up one or use like my production, one. Or I'll just say it's like for my workplace or something. So that, I literally just spent like a minute on a from line in an email. Shaking my head. All right, so subject here, verify, no, account, verify your account. There we go. I'm trying to keep something like informative, but also like non-threatening so as to get caught by like email spam filters, because throwing out links in emails using words like auth and verification probably give you like a little more red flaggish, terminology. So I'm going to try to not get caught up, too terribly there. But now for Mailgun, they actually support, the property we passed in was actually HTML. They support HTML in their emails. It's not just like a singular plain text thing. So we can actually craft up some elements here. And I made this, utilizing backticks for the template literal because I wanted multi-line, HTML, but also it lets me interpolate values pretty nicely. So this will be like https://8000/verify. So here we'll go ahead and we'll have like a verify page. Now I also need something in this email here that lets me know who's clicking on this link. So we're actually going to use JWTs here, interestingly enough. We'll go ahead and create a token. We don't need to put like much of anything in there. We really just need something that's unique to a user that also has like expiration. So that, hey, sounds like a JWT, right? So we'll encode that token, put it in the URL here. So we are actually going to be reusing some of our tokens functionality. Now, this payload type here is what we, like this sign function, we're going to use for a majority of the time. Let's see, what is that payload type? Is it just email? I already forgot. No, we've got some additional props in here that we don't necessarily need to use this function. Like the token contents we don't really care all that much about. We are just going to be encoding like their email in it. And the reason why we want to encode their email in it is in the event that when we're trying to verify their email account and they click on the link and we parse the token and verify it, if it comes out to be invalid for any reason, such as just an expired token, well, at the very least, what we could do is just decode the contents of the token, extract that email out, and resend the link to that user. So we'll do that. And I'll just do some JWT functionality in mind. So moving my library imports up, moving my library imports, my personal imports down. We've got our token signing key all available under that giant config umbrella. So what we'll do here is create a token variable. And then we are going to say jwt.sign. And then our payload is going to be an object with a property called email, whose value is 2, aka the user's email that we're passing in. our signing key config.jwt.secret. I'm just going to do a non-null assertion operation here because we've already validated that elsewhere in our app. We already have like it throwing like an unhandled error in the event we're missing our key, so we've got that crashing. What we could also do is in our config folder, what we could do is we could just do an assertion of everything here. We could cast everything as a string, so that way our type definitions in here would all be understood to be a string. And we could also do that error throwing check here to cause an unhandled error in case any of our critical environment variables were not actually defined. So we kind of get the best of both worlds with that. I think I'm actually going to do that. So by casting them both as strings here, it coerces out the undefined typing, so these can only be known as a string or expiration. Although because of the cast, that kind of masks the nebulous potential danger. These legitimately could be undefined. So we still do want to go ahead and make sure that we don't have any missing properties. And we could just use like the isDefined check here. We could use like strings are good. We could use isString. Really, most of these validators we could do. We could also just like do a truthiness check here and say like so we are going to throw an error. We will deliberately crash our application with an unhandled error just because we really do not want it running in the event we can't sign tokens. That's pretty critical. I'll go ahead and do the same thing here for our Postgres properties. Even though technically speaking, the Postgres library doesn't care. Like, it's okay with those being evaluated as undefined. Just because it's okay with that doesn't mean that I should. So here I'll go ahead and assert that as strings nevertheless, even though it's fine. But we will make sure that we validate everything anyway. Whoops. All right. So that's good. That's good. Mailgun. We'll go ahead and take care of that too. Right, and finally, now that we've got Mailgun added in, here, under here, if we reference like maildon.key, it would be known to be defined, but TypeScript won't always be all that great at picking up on that. So for here in this instance, we extract key and domain out. Even though we have it throwing an error immediately beneath that line of code, it still isn't context aware of that. And so instead of rewriting that throw new error check here to assert that, that's the reason why I'm coming back to this file. We still check for the data here and throw an error if it's undefined, but we also can now just have as string casting every one of these values, and that means that these values are never going to be interpreted as undefined anywhere, always as strings, because we have already checked for their existence here. So all right, so that's kind of getting my env, that's getting my environment variables kind of the way that I think I would like them. So That means no further, error throwing or checking elsewhere, and everything is understood to be defined. So I can actually get rid of this non-null assertion operator now because it, was cast to be a string and string only. All right. And here, we'll set up an expiration time of like 15 minutes. Doesn't need to be anything super long, just because it's a verification link. If they're on our site, they can go over to their email and click that pretty quickly. All right. So all we're doing is encoding and signing a token with their email in it that is valid for 15 minutes. So verify, we'll add a query param of type equals verify and token equals token. So the reason why I am adding that and type in is because we can use this component and the underlying server-side logic for decoding everything to do multi-factor authentication in addition to the verification, in addition to magic link style logins, where you just type out your email and you click send link and you click it and you're automatically logged in. It's almost exactly the same thing as this process. We just have different text in the emails effectively. So an email client should likely hyperlink this, but we'll go ahead and create an anchor tag nevertheless. So localhost 8000/verify !type equals verify and token equals token. Cool. And then, we could make it look super spammy with like a bunch of like directional, chevrons and say like, click here, hot links in your territory or area. All right, but this will get an email sent out. Send verification email, you pass in an object with an email in the property form of 2, and then we sign a token, send it, and that will get an email sent out. So let's go ahead and for this function, for the service, we got a lot of different things going on in here. I might not make default exports out, even though that's what I've been doing for the entirety of this project, and I might just make named exports out. So I'll go ahead and get that send verification email linked up into our auth middlewares. So go ahead, imports send verification email, and then here we have successfully created our user, and we can await send verification email. We need that object of all of our mailing credentials here. For us, for this email, type in particular, it's just a 2 property. And what is that value? Well, that user's email that we just did. So oh, I said it was of the type mail props and not of the type oh, that's twice I pulled up my... How reckless. I pulled up my EMV twice in the middle of this just because I left it open and never closed out of it. Yeah, so I typed that as mail props, but in this instance, it is literally just the 2 property that I need. So I could also just pass it as like a flat string here. And like I said, earlier, I might make it more flexible in the future, so I might change that up a little bit, but for now, it just requires a string. So now, I will try to register for an account, and it will send that verification email. And if I attempt to log in without having verified my account, my verification status is still unverified. Well, what we're going to do here is await send verification email. And then here, I said 10 minutes. Let me go adjust that code. But here, we've already kind of got the rest of that workflow handled. Mailer token. We're going to make this expires in 10 minutes. So let's double check our controllers, make sure there's nothing I need to do in there for events or for users. No, this is dealing with SMS stuff, so we should be all right for that for the time being. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if I can register for an account now and get an email sent out. So we'll go ahead and run our dev script here, and then I'll get everything up and going. Let's see, is it just my TS config that has the type error? Okay, we should be good. All right, so our servers are running on localhost :3000, so I'm gonna go ahead and get Postman fired up. And then the routes I need to hit up for that are auth register, and I need to double check that middleware just to make sure I know what properties are required. Name, email, password, username, phone. I'm running this through like a bunch of validators too, so I have to make sure it's like semi-legit data, although I need to have my isEmail validator make sure that email is an email and that username is not an email. But so conveniently enough, we have some similar-esque properties for login here, and I would assume register. But let me make a new folder for this. I actually have Scheduly noted as a collection here from when I was working on this with some students for some demos. So am I using the exact same properties for this project as I was previously? Name, email, password, username, phone. Name, email, username, password, phone. Yes, I am. Convenient. So here, we're actually using a really cool feature of Postman. It has a Faker.js integration in it. So if you want in your post bodies or put bodies, or basically anywhere you can use a variable in Postman, you can use Faker.js. So they use mustache case, 2 curly braces to allow you to interpolate variables, and then they have the Faker.js integration where every variable is pre-pinned with the $, and generally speaking the word random. So I have random full name and then random username, random int here for my username property, phone, random phone number, and then for email, I've got my email. Now, passwords, obviously, Hunter2, classic, but I do want to, and you will want to use your actual email here, because if you're using your production credentials, great. But also, if you are using your sandbox test demo keys, you can only send emails to accounts you have verified. So you'll use whatever account that you've got linked up with your Mailgun account, and then like any other additional ones that you've sent verification emails to and verified. So you will need to, when you're dealing with your code here, make sure that you do get everything set up. Let's see. So we got a 404 on auth register. Let's go double check our server setup. Server's listening on 3000. We saw that get outputted. We'll go check our router tree, which I actually don't think I have any of my routes imported in here. So that would probably be why it's 404ing. We do have our router index built up here in our routes folder, so all I have to do is import that in my server. So just a little oversight of mine, but it happens. And if you have any unexpected 404s on your app, just make sure everything's linked up. That's probably the use case or the reason why it's 404ing. So I'll import my routes index file from my routes index file. And then go ahead and tell my Express app to go ahead and use that router. So now I actually have a defined route for that. And then we had my server die. Let's go see why. Cannot destructure property name of rect body. So yet again, I've spent a total of like 5 seconds on server setup, And I just added my routes, but I neglected to do another thing. Some property of recBody, doesn't exist because it's undefined. Why is recBody, giving back undefined values? It's because my data isn't getting serialized into it. It's because I'm sending that data with a content type of application JSON. That's what happens whenever you go to body raw JSON with Postman. If you check your headers here, we get content type. So this post request here is telling the server what type of data it's sending. So that way the server knows how to parse it and handle it. But I didn't tell my server what type of data to expect as incoming and how to parse it. And so I need to turn on my JSON body parser. So 2 very quick lines of code for my server, but we should be up and rolling now. And then we get successfully created account. We get our ID bounced back. And if I check my email, we're not getting any errors here, which is pretty good. That's always a good confirmation. I'll go ahead and pull up my browser and check my email, and we will see if we have any verification emails from myself. Oh yeah, here we are. We have my email from Mailgun 0 minutes ago, auth at no reply at covalence.io. Verify your account by clicking here to verify. Now this, maybe I shouldn't use an H1 here. Graphic design isn't necessarily my passion, and I think we can even see that being present here in an email, but an H1 might be a little aggressive. Regardless, if we hover over this link here, it's going to be nigh impossible to see on a browser preview while watching this on YouTube, but it is going to localhost 8000 because that's what I said my base URL was with my environment variables. And that's where my client-side React app is running /verify. So we'll eventually have a verify page with the type of verify and then a token encoded in the URL. Hello, missing auth headers. Lovely. So yeah, so this is actually getting us almost all of the way through. We have emails getting sent. That's kind of the huge critical part about this. So if we can send them, we can now go verify them. And that means I need to go ahead and actually code out a quick verification page here. So views, verify.tsx. We've got that created, our app here. This is just our boilerplate, app default structure, so I'll go ahead and nuke all of that. I'm also going to go ahead and install React Router DOM. And its types. So as we have that installing, I am going to import browser router routes and routes. So we're still doing some server-side stuff, but we do want the client-side verification page set up, and it's going to be very basic. We are literally just going to have it take your data from the URL and just daisy chain it down to the server. So all right, we'll have a home page here. Element equals h1 saying home amount. Path for that is going to be our home route. And then what we're going to do is we will have our /verify page here. And that will actually link up to our verify component that we just coded out a second ago. Boom. Cool. So just a very small browser router getting set up, but now we have the ability to actually land on a specific component when we click on a link in an email. Now, I'm going to be doing my server, we're kind of meticulously setting up. I will also be doing the same client side, including setting up some nice convenient services and things, but for now, I'll just be doing some quick and dirty fetching calls. We'll end up creating like our own little API helper library that makes fetch calls a little bit easier. But for now, actually, let's see. I don't think we'll want any state for this necessarily, but what we will do is let's see, URL search params. Does that take window.location.href? I think it just takes the URL as a string. Let's see. Yeah, we'll figure it out nevertheless anyway. So that gives us a URL search params object, which lets us use like params.get. It's got a it's its own unique data structure, but it's got very like map-like API calls to it. So we'll extract out the token and the type. And what we're going to do is we're just going to daisy chain a fetch call to our server. And then let's see. So our server, we have our just like regular middlewares for like some general auth stuff. We don't really have a route or a controller defining like what happens when they try to verify. So we need a verification route here on our controllers. So what we're going to be doing here is, well, we're going to be passing in those same exact rec params. Our query parameters that we strip out from the client side will be resending down here to the server. So we'll have const type and then const token and I have like super overzealous autosave settings, so I'm commenting out my fetch code here just because it's gonna save in the middle of me typing it and cause a bunch of like angry API errors. But I also want to get IntelliSense here, so you know what? And then I should also abstract this out to environment variables to have like my server URL, just because I do have my server and client existing on separate ports in development, but in production they'd be together. For now, I'll just go ahead and do the hard-coded preface, but I probably will at a later point move that to an environment variable. So all we're doing is basically just daisy chaining these query params down to the server. So those get sent to the server, and then on our server, what we're going to do is extract those out of our request query parameters, which we do have here, and then we can go ahead and attempt to verify them. So try catch, and then const user is equal to await JWT, which we don't have imported here. Now we do have the verify function that we put in the utils, in our little token utils file, but we do have it returning the type as like payload, which isn't exactly accurate because like this is going to be like 90% of our token workflow. Um, Okay, we can also dump that, get rid of that, because we've already validated that those are good. Let's see. I think I'll just do it manually as well, because that's what I did to sign it, and like it's not a lot of code. It's like 30 characters and change. So let me go ahead and import. Let's see, we've got our library imports and then my imports. All right, jwt.verify, pass in our token here. And then our secret would be config.jwt.secret. Now, with the request query, you can put in, multiple bits of data for a particular key in a query parameter. So here it thinks that token could potentially be a string or string array. What I'm going to do is just check for truthiness here, say if not token or not type, or type of token does not equal string. And that way I don't have to worry about like any alternate type assertions here. I just validate that it must be a string. All right. And so what we're going to do there is just bounce up a 401 saying missing auth info. But beyond that, we know that token here is going to be a string for certain. So if we can verify, great. But if we can't, if for some reason that is just if it's expired, for instance, that's going to be pretty much 99.9% of the reason why that's going to fail here. It's going to be because the token's expired. So that throws an error, which we catch. Well, what if I click on an email link, 20 minutes after it was sent and it's already expired? What would be kind of the most frictionless experience for your user? You just resend the email. So what we're going to do is, in this catch block here, we will await send verification email. And to who? Well, we don't have that information kind of out in the plane. What we could do is we could put that email address in the URL, and that means we won't even have to decode the token itself. But the reason why I did send that token with the email is because we can decode it. And then what that's going to entail is pretty much the same structure as the above, except decoding does not, check for the validity of it. It just says this is the info that's inside. Oh, we actually don't need the signature even for that. So yeah, this just extracts out the info, and here that anonymous, object I've got here, if I define an interface for that, that would be the interface of our, verification tokens here. But and this would be a 401 as well. Invalid token, please check your email for a new link. Boom. So we've got some resiliency with registration there. And then if we have managed to have this verification work, well, we know who the user is. That verify object here is actually going to have that user's email in there. So we know who was able to click on that link. And because they have clicked on that link from their email, we now know that they own the email inbox, the email account of who they registered as. And so we can go ahead and mark them as complete. So we can await db.users. And I never wrote a query to verify a user, actually. So let's go ahead and change that. So const verify. We'll take in a user email as our argument here, and we'll return a call to query. Say update users set, and then email verified is specifically the one that we are working with. So let's go look at that. Or let me double check. Well, I can look at our types. Email underscore verified. And what did I set that up as? Pretty sure I set that up as a tiny integer, or the Postgres equivalent of that. So we'll do that, and then where email equals. And we are not sending in, IDs. Why? Because we just use the email for what the token's contents were, because we do also have emails with a unique clause on our database. So emails effectively could be primary keys if we wanted. However, we went with, the serial data type, so we could have something auto incrementing, which is easily indexable. But yeah, so we'll just do that, add our verify function here, which requires us just sending email as an argument. Boom, and we have a user that is now verified. All right. And now that we've got that verification logic done in this controller, we'll go ahead and export that out. And we'll actually get to test the logic in action for an expired token, because it has definitely been more than 10 minutes now since I last sent that. So here, since I am sending up the same exact data structure regardless of the outcome, what I will do is just alert the data.message, since I'm always sending JSON data regardless of the outcome. And since that JSON data is always having a message here, I'm just going to alert data.message for the time being. We'll do some cooler stuff with that, but it does mean now that landing on this page is going to be able to legitimately verify my token. We can check that in the database just to be double sure. But if I go to my Postgres instance here, log in. If we go to our users table, and if I go ahead and select all from users, or you know what, email and email underscore verified. Let's see, I need to use my database first, so Scheduly noted, boop. Well, we may, I think we did this previously for some other purpose. I'm trying to remember what we may have done in the last video entailing that, but we'll go ahead and act as if this is a new registration. Or, you know what, I can use Gmail aliasing to send something to my same inbox, but it gets treated as a unique email nevertheless. So we'll do that. So we're going to go through the full registration process. Well, no, I just actually created this account. So let me register with this. And is my server running? Ah, crud. Well, I can't. So yeah, so I'm on my sandbox keys, so I can't send it to an alias email address, even though it is technically going to the same email. So what I need to do is okay, I think I'm connected to, hold on. I'm connected to my other database. Because I did try this out with students a couple weeks back on a similar application where we did just the server work and never got to the client side stuff. But no, that is Postgres I'm connected to. Why do I have a codes? Let me pause and double check and make sure I'm connected to the right database. I'll be right back with y'all. Alright, yep. So I actually was connected to the wrong database. It is my calendar database, not my original Scheduly noted database. And I probably should have included into the fact that my query panel last had create database calendar at the top. So now that I'm running on the right database, I was like, why do I have a foreign key constraint for a code stable? I was like, I haven't created one yet, have I? Whoops. Evidently I had. Let's see. Alright, so I registered as an account, but I need to make sure I can only create accounts now that actually are ones that Mailgun will actually send emails to. So here, let's go look back at our verification logic. This should be good. I think now I should be all right. Let me change my query actually, since I saw in my table the default value was false, so I'm using booleans for those instead. So on my database users queries here, verify, set email verified equal to false. True, sorry, true. You know, with JavaScript evaluation, it would have come out the same, but I would hate to write a query explicitly looking for a value of true and not truthy values, and just miss something from overlapping but missing data types. So now that we've got that done, sending out an email to myself, successfully created accounts. If I check out that user's info in the database, their default value for email verified is false, which is good. It is exactly what we expect. Oh, there we go. Just a little slow. New message from auth. Show. Then here, 0 minutes ago, verify your account by clicking here to verify. Can I collapse that? Yeah. So there we go. 0 minutes ago. Click it. Boom. And so this kicks off. Let's see. We should have had that alert fire regardless of the outcome. We're getting, I think, HTML back. So I think I 404'd. I may have just messed up my URL path. Let's see, get localhost / verify. Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's 404ing because I wrote the controller code. I just never linked it up to a route. So, still unverified for now. You can confirm that, come over here, run that, still unverified. But if we go to our routes, and I've been a little disorganized with my folder management here for this video, so like having too many things open and not collapsed out, I think has caused a little bit of like, not confusion, but like overlooking of things. So and then here, router dot, we're making it a GET request because keeping it nice and easy peasy, just daisy chaining along those query params. So controllers.users.verify. All right, now /auth/verify/auth/verify. Got everything linked up, all files saved, all folders collapsed. We've got our terminal running here. Everything's good. We just checked our user account. I don't have to delete that user. This email is still actually valid for the next 8 minutes. So what I'm going to do here is click, boop, oh yes, nicely done, mate. So if we go check our database now, we select email verified from users, and this column is now going to be true. So if I zoom in a little bit, boom. So we registered, which made my server send an email. We clicked on the email, which indicates that we own the email account we said we were registering with. And then my link provided in there lands me on this verify page, which sends that data to the server. The server says, yeah, the token's good, it's valid and legit. Let's go ahead and verify this guy. So that is a huge part of our functionality done. Like everything we've been doing thus far has been building up to getting us to the point of being able to verify a user email account. Now that we've done that, we've kind of got Pandora's box unlocked, and we could do a bunch of cool features along the way as well. We could add in like magic link logins, we can add password reset functionality, we can add in multi-factor authentication, but for now, we have the ability to test out some of our routes, which has been, 4 videos in the making now, and also the whole registration process. So if I want to go test out some other quick things, let me delete this user again. User is gone. I'll re-register, and I will attempt to log in without verifying. So here we have no new verification links. There we go, still have that older one. I'm registering as a new user here. Gonna log in or register. Our user account has been created. Let's see. These are the emails when I was using the Faker.js integration, and they provide, well, email here, but I set up the code in that to use either emails or usernames, so a user could do one or the other. And so I was testing out the integrations of that. So if my emails don't look like emails, it's because they're usernames, and it's really easy to set that up. All you need is a little regular expression to help validate which is which. But for now, I'm gonna use my email, gonna use the classic Hunter2 here. We're gonna run this, it's gonna let me know invalid credentials. So it is failing because this guy is still unverified. And so that is gonna be, let's see, in my middlewares for logging in. We've got the right credentials, however, in the event we have, yeah, bad credentials sounds a little off. Andrew at Covalence.io, Hunter2. Let's see. Now, user account for sure exists. Yeah, so we are using that regular expression here is email. That should be finding a user object for me. Let's log out our user object here. See if I'm getting that user back. Oh, users coming back undefined. Interesting. Let's see. Login. Let's see if we get true back for is email, because I am sending a legitimate email here. Yeah. Okay. So with the regular expression, we don't care about like the actual return data per se. We don't care about the regular expression match patterns. We just care that it's an array of data is truthy, because if it doesn't have any matches, it returns null. So we can use it as a truthy falsy check. So that is true, truthy. So therefore, email is the column name that we're attempting to apply. Oh, you know what? It's the dynamic column evaluation, which isn't a thing with Postgres, I believe, or at least not with the PG library. So let's see, for columns, I think we actually do have to interpolate that value in here, which is not bad. You know, we are only having these be one of two possible values as sent by your server. It's not anything getting derived by user input. So we are basically just building up like the placeholder. Okay, we got a general 500 here, so let's see what that caused. Yeah, Postgres error. Oh, and it's because I changed this to $2, so had one shifted my parameters. All right, now yeah, and here it's crashing on, I'm sending two parameters, but the query itself only required one. I was like, wait, why is it saying that? It's because I was sending two parameters still. All right, but now, there we go. So here, I attempted to log in with an unverified account, and so we get that 403 now that I've fixed that up, meaning in my browser here, we'll eventually get a new email. So checking our email account again. This user is still yet to be verified. And then here, 0 minutes ago, verify. Boom, all yes, nicely done, mate. And then it's firing twice because of the use effect in development mode for the curious who were wondering why. But that was the design decision by the React team for V18, just to make sure that you handle all of your unmounting effects correctly. But yeah, so now we've got those in place, and we can do some checks later, just making sure our token expiration workflow works fine. But if we look back at our controllers, I mean, when we try to verify if this fails because it's like a shit token or something, if it's expired, we extract the email out and just resend it. So we've got some little bit of resiliency there. But yeah, only if it's good do we actually allow the user account to verify. And then if I come over here, well, it's true because we just saw all yes, like nicely done, mate. So that's just about it for this. But hey, this was pretty cool because we have been building up for several videos now to this point. So if you want to make sure that you see all of the other videos in the series, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Just make sure you do see those when they come out. And if you like this video, go ahead and give a thumbs up. And if you have any comments you'd like to see me address, go ahead and drop them. And until then, I'll see y'all in the next edition.